is immutable. The money is decentralized.
The genesis locked to the edge of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution.
This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. Happy Friday, the 13th. We talk about all things on-chain on this channel, right? And there's some good news that has come out for Bitcoin and crypto this morning with the CPI report and data. CPI came in cool, right? It's inflation seems to be cooling down a bit. And so we're going to get into that. That's the main topic of the show. Is CPI data enough to drive Bitcoin back to the upside? But before we get into anything, I want to welcome back my TikTok audience, my Abstract audience, my Zora audience, and Rumble, Kick, and Twitch as well. I do need to check and see if my X is connected properly. Give me 1 second here. And it isn't, but that's okay. I can get that connected really quick here. All right. All right, we're good to go there. Yes, so Friday the 13th, right? Always a weird day, and it is a weird day as how it started off with the markets as well. You are seeing Bitcoin wanting to go to the upside, but can it be sustained? That's been the question that we've been discussing a lot lately, right? So my take on this is Bitcoin can, and parts of crypto can kind of play off of the CPI data, but there's other data that makes me feel like it's kind of time for the markets to kind of get back to the upside, right? We're going to talk about that. I'm going to pull that in as well. We're also going to hit on some other news topics across the cryptoverse. We're going to talk about, why 85,000 is an important price point for Bitcoin to kind of determine if we are getting out of the bear market. Also, the U.S. Senate Banking Committee seems to be working with the SEC to push along market structure bills. So that's definitely a good thing. And then also we will hit on Ethereum's weekly transactions. So this has been a, constant trend with ETH having weekly transaction counts continually going up to all-time highs, really. But who's using the chain? That's the question. We'll also hit on Cathie Wood's Ark Investment, what her take is. And, I don't put a ton of, value into her takes all the time, because I remember from 2021, she went in pretty heavy with a lot of speculative tech stocks late. But I think right now where we are, it could be a little bit of a different approach for me with her. And then we will round things out with some of the trenches news as well. But like always, drop your comments in the chat. I will get to those accordingly. But let's start off with this main topic, right? The main topic is, will CPI cool enough? Will that be enough to drive Bitcoin to the upside? My answer is yes. And we're going to dig deep into that. But before we do, we're going to start the show like we always do with the market pulse here. So let's get into some headlines really quick to kind of see how the news this morning, just the quick headlines, are affecting the current markets. All right, we're going to start off with that CPI data here. You can see the consumer price index, right, came in at 0.2%. The expected was 0.3%. So better there. CPI year over year. So this is the main number that people are looking for, right? We came in at 2.4 and the expected was 2.5. So inflation seems to be cooling a bit. The core CPI data, though, it came in as expected at 0.3%. And then year over year, same thing, as expected for core CPI data at 2.5%, and expected was that 2.5% as well. So, all in all, that's pretty good data for CPI, right? But how is it going to affect what people think and speculate for rate cuts and the current price action? Well, Polymarket actually didn't move very much at all in terms of going towards an actual rate cut for March with these numbers. So no change at all, is still at 93%, right? It actually has increased recently. And then an actual rate cut chance is sitting at 7%. So 6% at 25 bips and then 1% at 50 bips, right? So whenever poly market is above 80%, as we get closer, I feel like that's pretty much a locked in situation here. We do got a couple comments in here. Rick G says, what's up, fam? Friday pump is here. Yeah, we're about to get into that. We're going to see if it is a sustainable pump or not. And then we got Trump coming out saying he's going to roll back some steel and aluminum tariffs for affordability concerns, right? So this shows that the administration is starting to kind of open their mind a bit towards tariffs, right? They definitely want the economy to be in a better place as we get closer to midterms. I'm not sure if they can save, the Republican side can save their side for midterms too much, right? Because we've gotten to a point to where time is running out and the macro situation just doesn't look super great. I know these numbers are coming out and it says it's getting just incrementally better, right? But if you think about it and you zoom out, it hasn't gotten much better. So, but maybe they start to get aggressive with that, right? So pulling back tariffs is one way to do it. And then, yeah, so those are kind of the three headlines before we get into the market right here, the market pulse, and Bitcoin is sitting at 68,800, as you can see. And the stock market is starting to go green a little bit. I remember looking at this about 30 minutes ago, and the S&P was in the red slightly. It's back in the green. It's up 0.38%. You got the NASDAQ up 0.44%. The Dow Jones is up 0.3%. The VIX is slightly down at 0.48%. So it's been able to kind of bring volatility back down. So that's a good thing for the VIX. The DXY is up 0.13%. The Russell is up 1.8%. So the risk on area of the stock market is starting to pick up. And then you got the Mag 7 up 0.8%. NVIDIA down 1.6%. Google down 0.78%, Apple down 0.9%, and then Tesla down 0.24%. Futures are a little bit mixed. You got silver up 3.3%, while oil is down 0.5%. Crypto, on the other hand, is one of the sectors that's benefiting the most, though. You are seeing Bitcoin up 4.15%, and you're seeing Ethereum up 5.63%. Now, precious metals are also enjoying a pump to the upside as well with the CPI data. Gold is up 1.5%, and silver is up 3.3% here. So overall, the market seemed to, kind of like what the data says, right? Now, the stock market's the only one that's lagging a little bit, but it seems to be catching up recently here as most of these index funds are starting to come back into the green. All right. Now let's take a look at some data that makes me feel like this could be a situation to where Bitcoin could kind of come out of this drought of, going to the upside, right? It's been pretty much down only, showing a lot of weakness. And I know yesterday I talked about, be careful with a Bitcoin pump to the upside that might look sustainable, but won't. And then you can kind of get trapped. Now, I still believe that, but that doesn't mean we can't have a week of green for Bitcoin and the blue chips, right? And so I'm going to show you guys why I kind of feel that, right? So first, let's talk about this resistance level that's very, very local. It used to be the support level, but it's that 68,000, low 69,000. And we did finish the first hour candle above that this past hour. We've started a new hour candle now, but this is the first hour candle that has actually finished above the old support level, the new resistance level, right? And so, and that's, going back probably about, I don't know, it looks like almost 20 hours, right? So not a super long time, but finishing above that level is important to kind of carry on with this rally. Now, this resistance level used to be the one that we used to focus primarily on when we were hanging around 68 and 69,000 for Bitcoin. And this resistance level is the 71,300. So this is where I'm looking at. I know there's a couple tight spots in between. You got 69.9 right at 70,000 and then 71. But the 71.3 was the stubborn area that we could not break above before. So that is what I'm looking for to say, okay, if it breaks above that, then this could be a sustainable rally. Now, I don't want to get too much into the Bitcoin price action on the local levels, the shorter time frames, because we're going to get into that with price action and crypto bubbles in a bit. But I want to show you guys some data that's making me feel like, hey, this could be a situation to where we actually go into a green week for Bitcoin. All right. So if you take a look here at the CoinGlass weekly returns for Bitcoin, you can see that the current week that we're in right now is the fourth week in a row that Bitcoin has had negative % returns, right? And we did have one positive week, which was the second week. And it's funny because they actually spelt it with or they had a 2 and then a TH. So second week, I guess Mike Tyson might be in charge of their information here, putting on here. No, but the second week of this year was the only green week that we've had for Bitcoin. So out of the 6 weeks, it's been 5 negative weeks, right? But if you look at the history here, you go down 2025 all the way to 2020 or 2014. The only year between 2026 and 2014 that there's been more than 4 negative consecutive return weeks for Bitcoin was 2022, when we were going through all those crazy black swan events, right? So let me kind of show you where that is. So as you can see right here, the 13th week of 2022 was negative. That's where it started off. And it went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 negative return weeks for Bitcoin in a row in 2022 during all those black swan events, right? Now, outside of that, you have to go all the way back to 2014 to have more than 4 negative return weeks for Bitcoin. And that was here. You can see in the beginning of 2014 where the bear market started, there was a long drought basically for Bitcoin. I think there was 8 negative weeks there. I think it happened twice in 2014. The second time might have been here. Yeah, there was 5. Outside of that, and that period that I showed you with 2022, there was no other periods of time that we had more than 4 negative consecutive weeks of Bitcoin having negative % returns, right? So we're at 4 right now with this current week. Now, I'm not saying that guarantees us to have a green week this coming up week, but if you look at the potential of that happening, it's pretty low percentage, right? Now, of course, it could be a situation to where we know that this past cycle is different and we're just playing into, a situation to where it could be an anomaly this time. Sure, that could be the case, but I'm just talking about actual odds, right? The odds are it's not going to happen necessarily, or not probable, right? So if you look at where we are currently with Bitcoin having this aggressive push to the upside, this could be the situation to where we get out and we actually have that first green return, the positive return % week for Bitcoin for this year out of that, that 4-week trend that we just that we're having right now. Right now, one thing I do want to say is you got to be very, very careful whenever good news comes out on Friday mornings, because you'll get a strong push to the upside on Friday mornings. And then, as things wind down for the second half of the day, people are kind of checking out for the weekend and those type of things. Volumes go down and all that stuff, right? And then you start to see weakness come in again. But the situation that could play out is we get to a really strong price point for Bitcoin, and then kind of calm down heading into Saturday. But then Sunday evening, going into this new week, it could be a strong green week, right? So that's my point with that, right? So even if it does seem weak for the second half of today, right, that doesn't mean we don't start next week with a strong green candle for Bitcoin. So that's something to kind of look at, right? Okay, so now you guys know my stance on this CPI data, if it can carry up Bitcoin. I think potentially it could heading into next week for a strong week, but I don't think it's going to be sustainable. I think, if anything, we could have a strong week next week, and then we start to unravel a little bit after that. But that's a little bit too far into the future in terms of being speculative on that situation, right? So let's get into a couple headlines now. And then the first headline is very, very interesting, because it's going to pull back to kind of the reasoning why I don't think that this will be like a multi-week rally sustainable situation for Bitcoin, right? Okay, so this first headline here, goes into, where is it? Right here. Right. So Bitcoin's long-term rally is broken until it reclaims 85,000. So I mentioned 85,000 earlier, right? This is an article that was quoting Deribit, and Deribit is the largest options platform in crypto, right? So for the people that don't know what Deribit is, that's what they are, and they partner with like Coinbase and other large entities here. All right, so let's get into the article here. It says Bitcoin's long-term rally is broken and will remain so until the price climbs above 85,000, said Jean David, and he has this freaking French last name here, but I'm not going to try that. It says Chief Commercial Officer of Derivatives Exchange Deribit. It says the largest cryptocurrency has settled into the $60,000 to $70,000 range, and we've been seeing that right this past week. Bitcoin's had trouble getting out of this 67, 68, 69,000 range, right? And it says 45% below the record high it hit in October. Right, so they're talking about the $126,000 all-time high that it hit. It's on track to fall for a fourth straight week. That's the week that we were talking about. And says and dropped below 85,000 at the end of January. Until the market reclaims 85K, the longer-term chart remains broken. I completely agree with this. It says and the path of least resistance technically remains lower. And it says rising above 85K would confirm that buyers have established control. Having soaked up the supply that wrecked the long-term outlook. The Bitcoin price was recently near 66,000. Okay, so let's take a look at what he's talking about here. He's saying 85,000 is this really important price level, and it is. So going back here on this weekly chart here, you can see, ignore this right here. This was from yesterday. Actually, I'll delete this. But let's go to where he's talking about. Right. So if we go up here at 85,000, what area is that? So that is right at that 100-day moving average, right? So we've talked about how Bitcoin needs to start to reclaim some of these smaller, day moving averages to give us conviction that it's ready to the bull's ready to kind of get control back, right? Because right now the bears definitely have control. We're in a bear market. It's pretty obvious that's happening. So, he's kind of agreeing here. He's saying 85,000 is that mark. And this is Deribit that gets a ton of data, right? But what's interesting is it won't be the 100-day at that point once we start to get back to 85,000. What's going to happen is these averages are going to come down a bit, right? Because Bitcoin is lower. But when you see, when it's time for Bitcoin to kind of go to the upside and start this strong rally to the upside and the bear market seems to be over, we're starting to exit it. And it'll be kind of slow, but you'll see the 50-day, and it happens every single time, crash right below everything, and Bitcoin first claims that. You saw it happen here after the COVID crash. You see it happen here in the 2018 bear market as well. Now, it didn't get below the 200-day, which that did happen here in April of 2023, but it didn't happen in March of 2019, right? But the 50-day did crash down below the 100-day, and it recaptured that, and then it went above the 100-day, and then you never saw it again below until we were in the bull market, right? So that's what we are looking for. That's what Deribit's looking for. That's what a lot of these institutions and people that are pundits that use this kind of moving average indicator and chart are looking for. All right, let's get back into some of these comments. We got Stan says ICP's making moves. It says Liechtenstein, Pakistan, Cambodia, and Switzerland signed up for their cloud engine in AI tech. Data sovereignty seems to be the play in 2026. Yeah, I think that a lot of these institutions are looking for chains and tech like ICP that have something to offer of substance, right? They want value. They don't want the vapor. They want to establish what in our space is going to be looked at as the most valuable. And to them, that's technology that's going to push things forward. ICP's always had that, right? ICP's always boasted that, you know, what they bring to the table can help the entire space. There just hasn't been a ton of people listening, right? We see it in the Bitcoin ecosystem where they can help scale some of these Bitcoin layer 1 assets. And then Stan also says Trac's Intercom AI peer-to-peer seems promising also. Yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit later. They have actually, I think, a stream or a space at the end of my stream here. I think it's going to be around 1 p.m., sorry, 11 a.m. Central Time. But appreciate the comments. Keep them coming, guys, and I will get to them, I promise. Also, shout out to Dreams over on Abstract, as well as Poet Babe. Hope you guys are doing great on this. Hopefully it's going to be a beautiful Friday. I want to go to the driving range and hit some golf balls, which, by the way, you guys should be getting out a little bit, right? Bitcoin is going to be here, so you can go try to take your mind off of things for a little bit. I don't know why the Zora stream's not connecting here, but I got to look into that. All right. Okay. Back to what I was talking about here. So we are going to be looking for when it reclaims that 50-day moving average, and I think that is going to be when we're closer to that $85,000 mark. But as you can see, I kind of showed how many more days we got. Right. This is basically a situation to where I created this. It's like a date. What would you call this? Area that you can use on TradingView. Right. And if you look at the previous bear markets and when they stopped really just kind of going down to that all-time low, it was around that 350 to 380 day mark. I just copied basically the most recent one. That puts us right at October of 2026, October of this year, which a lot of people are kind of anticipating, right? So, you know, us going up and down, and then we get here, and then we start to go up to finish the year in Q4, that could be a really solid, you know, scenario or situation heading into the next year. All right, let's see what we got for the next bit of news here. All right, this is pretty big. The U.S. Senate Banking Committee confirms coordination with SEC Chair Atkins on a crypto market structure bill. Make America the global crypto capital. So this is from MSB Intel on X. He puts out a lot of good information. You know, Cointelegraph uses some of his tweets, and other news sources do as well. But this is big because, you know, Atkins has been very, very cooperative with the digital asset space, crypto. It seems like he wants to kind of get things in the past in terms of like the relationship, how it used to be with the SEC. He wants all this stuff to be out there so they have clarity for their department and their entity, and also for crypto and innovation for the US, right? So I think the SEC chair is the perfect person for this job. And also it really gives clarity for retail users as well as builders in the space. So I think this is, if this can be, completed and pushed forward, I think this is going to be really, really big for the space and companies. I feel like Silicon Valley, that type of moment hasn't happened with crypto. We watched it, some of us that might be a little bit older, we witnessed it in real time whenever it happened in the 2000s with all of these new startups with apps and internet companies and those type of things, but it hasn't happened with crypto just yet. But this is one of the things that needs to happen, right? The market structure bills is a part of it, and obviously the regulatory legislation that's with stable coins and all that stuff being pushed forward. But this is more towards the builders, I feel like, as well. They'll feel more comfortable building and putting in their time. It's not just the money. You have to remember, there was a lot of people that didn't build in our space because they didn't want to waste time if it wasn't going to be legal, or if they were going to get into legal issues. But now it seems like we're getting closer and closer to making them feel at ease with, building innovation in our space. Dr. Mien says, GM, Dr. Mien. And for those that don't know Dr. Mien is one of two people that are a part of the Big Noodle team that builds in the Bitcoin ecosystem. They focus on AI. We have a weekly segment every Wednesday with them started this past week, but really knowledgeable. I'm excited for next week in the topic that we're going to get into there. And also Rick G says, Trac, the most complicated protocol ever invented. Yeah, they seem to be constantly just trying to innovate, trying to build. And Bitcoin's not the easiest place to do that, right? Bitcoin is definitely not the easiest place to do that. That is for sure. Mesh says, GM from Abstract. Welcome to the show. And then Cheaty says, what's up, Yak? What is up, Cheaty? And guys, if there's anything you want me to go over or look up while I'm live, just drop it in the chat. There isn't a ton of news. So, I'm down to dive into some research that you guys are looking into as well. All right, let's head into the next topic here. So you can see the ETF has kind of been bleeding for Bitcoin for quite some time. And it says Bitcoin's ETF bleed $410 million as Standard Chartered slashes Bitcoin's target. It says U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs are on track for a fourth consecutive week. We just watched that with the percent returns being negative. This is the fourth week in a row in general, but obviously the ETFs as well. And it says of losses as Standard Chartered cut its 2026 Bitcoin target to 100,000. See, this is the problem. A lot of these entities, they put out these crazy targets, going back to 2025. Look, I was somebody that was speculating that we would see a potential 250 to 300,000. Somebody else on the show was calling 750K, which is absolutely crazy, but it was kind of fun how we would kind of play on that. But, going back to 2017's bull market, I remember people, like having crazy, at the time, I think crazy was 100K, right? Because we were working our way to 20. And that's what happens every bull market. They always overshoot their estimations, including me, which I thought I was being a bit conservative there. But let's go on here. It says, so 100,000, they've readjusted. So they're kind of going on the opposite side, a little bit more bearish for this year. It says the U.S. spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds ETF saw heightened selling on Thursday with outflows accelerating the same day Standard Chartered lowered its 2026 Bitcoin forecast. Spot Bitcoin ETFs recorded 410 million outflows, extending weekly losses of 375 million according to SoSo value data. Unless Friday brings substantial inflows, the funds are on track for a fourth consecutive week of losses, which I think, that could, depending on how the rest of today goes, that could change, right? So that's where they are with that. They are kind of adjusting their targets for 100K. All right, this one right here is good news. So this, I'm going to try to kind of mix it with bad news, good news, bad news. Brazil reintroduces bill to create strategic Bitcoin reserve, allowing the country to acquire up to 1 million Bitcoin. So this is something that we thought was going to be more aggressive for sure in 2025, and it just wasn't. And I think it was because people didn't have the confidence that Bitcoin was going to continue to the upside, right? You saw a ton of, countries initially talk about that they were going to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. They were going to start a Bitcoin reserve. It was just a lot of talk. You didn't see too much. Now, you did see a couple small countries go in. Obviously, El Salvador has been doing it for quite some time, but I think you saw Bhutan, get involved, but it wasn't anywhere close to what we were expecting with a lot of the hype, from Michael Saylor and all these people, CZ, going to different countries to try to advise countries on how to start their Bitcoin reserves, all those things, right? So is this going to be just another headline to get people bullish again? I don't necessarily think so, because it's we're pretty, deep into the bear market, right? So what is it going to do? I don't think it's going to drive prices up crazy, right? So for me, I feel like this is something that they're, really considering. And so this is good that we're kind of getting this conversation started again for countries and nation states to actually start adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets, right? We'll see if it becomes more of a popular thing, but as of right now, it's not. This is like one of the first headlines I've seen in quite some time, actually, of countries adding Bitcoin, or at least trying to get legislation through to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. All right, let's get into the price axiom for today for Bitcoin and ETH and the crypto bubbles. Like I said, if there is any tokens you want me to check out, just drop them in the chat and I will take a look at them for you guys. But we're going to start off with Bitcoin like we always do for the price action here. And as you can see, it's looking strong. The MACD looks pretty strong here. You can see each of the MACD green candles are larger than the next, right? It's definitely driving off of the CPI data kind of energy that's happening here. The rest of the markets are trying to enjoy a push to the upside as well, right? So I don't imagine this just kind of stops and dies necessarily right now. You can see that we've been in the overbought territory for the stochastic RSI, and this is the hour chart for Bitcoin, by the way, since 2 a.m. today. So I think there was a little bit of expectation that Bitcoin was going to start to reverse a little bit, right? For the next 2 to 4, 6 hours, hey, maybe we get to 69.5, right? We finished the candle over this local, very, very localized resistance level of that high 68,000, low 69,000, but we're still kind of sitting there, right? We need to have a continuation up to this next level, and that next level would be, it's very, back when you look in the past, very, very small level, but there's a little bit of resistance there, and that is at, just 69.3, right? So really the next big level that I've been telling you guys about is that 71,003, but we got some ways to get there, right? We got a couple thousand to get there, but I see no reason why we would just stop in our tracks unless, there'd be any like headlines that would be just kind of detrimental to the momentum that we have currently right now. All right, so that is where Bitcoin is on the hour chart, right? And that gives you a 2 to 4, 6 hour forecast situation. So yeah, 69.5, maybe we knock on the door of 70, but would be very, very shocked if we finish the day super aggressive to the upside, just because that's not a typical Friday. Even if you do have a strong start to the day, typically the end of the day heading into the weekend, it just winds down. You can look at a lot of past Fridays. That's kind of how it plays out. And then looking here on the 4-hour chart, the 4-hour chart's giving us some support to what we just talked about on the shorter time frame. On that hour chart, right, we are seeing strength in this third MACD candle, right, to the upside. We just got to overbought territory on the stochastic RSI as well for the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. So it's looking good. It looks like we could, like I mentioned, knock on the $70,000 price point for Bitcoin today. If that happens, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the rest of the day goes. So looking good there on the 4-hour chart. The daily, this is one that I've been looking at for a long time. It looks very, very close to coming out, guys, right? So this is interesting. It's had so much trouble getting out of here. We've been in sell pressure for the MACD for Bitcoin on the daily chart since the 20th of January, right? Haven't been able to come out since then. But it looks like the fast and slow lines are very, very close to touching right now, right? Meaning, once that crosses over, we start that green bar on the MACD, that's when we are officially in buy pressure, right? Now, this is going to get interesting because, like I said, does this play into a situation with Bitcoin where, we're just kind of like having this strong Friday? Saturday will probably, maybe we have a little bit of momentum carry over into Saturday. It's not your typical just, scalping day type situation. Maybe we get a little energy there. But Sunday is the big day. How do we end the week, first of all? Even if we do, have a push up, we could still end the week. Because, as of this morning, when I pulled this up, we had a weekly return of negative 4.46%. So we could actually, if we have a strong push up before the weekly candle ends on Sunday, we could end this week barely maybe in the green or just very weak in the red, right? Nevertheless, it could jumpstart the next week the 7th week of this year in the green, and that's where that momentum could play perfectly into the daily chart here, right? So then that makes me wonder, do we actually get some strong, buy pressure momentum for Bitcoin starting next week, or does it start kind of flat, right? Even though we might come out of this sell pressure, does it start flat? Does it start kind of weak, or the MACD candle's a little just weak, and then we slowly build up? Because that 71,300 is definitely that threshold that we have to break above to say, okay, we were able to push through that resistance, right? Now, let's see where we go. Let's see what happens, right? So that is where I'm at with the daily as well. Let's take a quick look here at Ethereum and see what's going on with Ethereum. Is it just following Bitcoin, or is it doing its own thing? I mean, it's going to the upside, so it's still following Bitcoin, which is, we know it's going to be to the upside because everything is to the upside, and Ethereum's been following Bitcoin for the past 6 months, I would say. But you do see some strength here, just like you do on Bitcoin, right? So you're seeing the MACD look really strong on the hour chart for Ethereum. Ethereum's local, I would say, area that we had to get past was, right at 2000. It was like 1998. We're sitting at 2060 right now. So the next, that big resistance area that's comparable to what I was talking about with Bitcoin, 71,300. For Ethereum, you're looking at 2130, right? And man, ETH was looking pretty juicy down here. We got down to like 1899. Man, I really wanted to add ETH, but me and my wife decided let's just stick to Bitcoin right now. But I think that we are going to revisit some of these levels, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, now for the rest of today, same situation, right? Do we approach that 2130, that strong resistance level? I mean, we're not too far away from it. Probably not today. Maybe Sunday, heading into this next week, we could approach that resistance level and see, does it break through? Does it break through that resistance of 2130? So for today, I wouldn't be shocked if we head towards 21. We're sitting at 2060. The biggest thing is to see how the second half of Friday plays out for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, because Ethereum's just following it. All right, let's get into this 4-hour chart here. 4-hour chart looks pretty darn good for Ethereum, I'll tell you that. Looking strong to the upside, just crossed over, just like the Bitcoin situation, just crossed over the overbought territory for ETH. So I like where we are here. And by the way, for the people that are wondering what's the forecast kind of time frame for the 4-hour, it is a 2 to 3 outlook, 2 to 3 day outlook, right? Now, when you go into the weekend, it is a little different, because the weekends seem to have thin liquidity, lower volume, that type of situation. But in this case, it's interesting because we are playing off of the CPI energy that it seems to be pumping everything up here. So looking good on the 4-hour as well for ETH. Let's take a look at the daily. Does it come out of the sell pressure like Bitcoin wants to? Both haven't officially, but yes, it looks like it's very similar in that same situation. So let's see where Bitcoin and ETH want to go heading into Sunday's weekly close and open for next week's candle. Right. All right. Let's take a look at the crypto bubbles, which is the alt market. This is kind of where we get into the alt market. You can see on the daily, everything is green. Everything is happy. Right. Be careful, though, because, some of these meme coins, especially the AI driven ones, I feel like people can get caught up in some of these narratives and things like that. But speaking of, I'm talking kind of like Pippin. Right. Pippin is an AI meme coin on Solana, up 31%. Look, this thing was driving up last 2 days ago. It got to 530 million, and then it dropped to like 430 million about I want to say like 30 minutes later. So that's what I'm talking about. You got to be careful with some of these. Now it's sitting at $626 million market caps, up 31%. I wouldn't personally try to get into a coin like that as it's jumped up 31%. Now, if you're a believer in that coin and community, that's something that you decide to kind of go into. That's you have more information, right? So, but let's take a look at some of these other tokens in the top 100. We got Zcash up 9.6%. So privacy looking like it's got, a little bit of a push up, or at least with Zcash. Let's see if I can find another privacy token here. Monero is a part of that. I'll run into it in a second here. All right, so Hyperliquid up about 6%. Lit protocol, which is an interoperability protocol. Emblem Vault's team utilized them with their TEE. trust execution environment, right? Whenever you want to bridge from Bitcoin into another place, but they are up 10% here. Layer 0 is down 6.7%. And I think it's probably because they got a lot of love last week, as they've been in a lot of headlines with institutions. They're getting bullish on Layer 0, but they pulled back because I think a lot of people poured into them last week here. But pulling back 6.4%. You got Dash. I think Dash is another privacy coins, up 6.7%. Near Protocol up 8.6%. You got Tau up 8.7%. Optimism up 6%. Ondo, which is, the BlackRock's golden child, I feel like, they have been involved with them for quite some time, and they're just really RWA focused and institutional focused. They're up 7.6%. And I'm looking at a lot of those tokens. And I know that people might say, well, those market caps are so high. You have to think about, like, when institutions started to pour into some of these Web 2 companies in the beginning, some of their valuations and some of their market caps were higher, but they got exponentially higher over time. And till this day, we talk about Google, in the market pulse. Every day we hit on their market cap or their percentage gain or loss, right? So these are some of these companies or tokens that institutions are looking at for infrastructure. Layer 0, something they're looking at. Ondo, obviously. HBAR, those type of companies and tokens are the ones I feel like they're really kind of centered in on, and some new ones that have potential and strength. Hyperliquid is being looked at by a lot of these institutions as well. I'm very, very bullish personally on that. But yeah, if you look at the overall here in the top 100, you're looking at about a 6 to 10% on average, maybe a little bit lower, 5 to about 9% on average pull up. But you are seeing some meme coins in the top 100. Pengu's up 7.6%, but I like Pengu in terms of a meme coin because of Luca Netz, which is the founder of Pudgy, or he acquired Pudgy Penguins, and he has a very strong business mind. So I kind of put that in a little bit of a different category, as Abstract is also a chain that is a part of that company, the Pudgy brand, right? And you got the Trump coin up 5%, some meme coin there. Yeah, so that is what we got in the top 100. Tau is, the AI, basically like the way they do their mining is based on compute and things like that. They're up 9%. Let's take a look here at the top 200, 100 through 200. Some of these tokens that are sticking out. Comp is up 22.4%. XPL, which is the token that is on Plasma Chain, that's backed by Tether, is up 10.5%. SPX is up 5.6%, which is a meme coin. But it's a popular one. You got Pulse X up 4.5%, Hex up 6.8%, Monad up 13.8%. Barachain is looking bearish. It's down 8.6%. ZBCN, Courtney Johnson's favorite coin, is up 13.5%. Let's look at some of these comments. We got Fact or Fiction from Stan. He says, RAM shortage contributing to bear market. I mean, I feel like we're just in the time frame of a bear market, but there is a RAM shortage for sure happening, and I don't know if that's because of OpenClaw or the AI situation that's happening. It seems to be the case. We had Superfan from Big Noodle on Wednesday, and then on a Spaces every Thursday. By the way, we co-host the Spaces on Thursday with Ordinal Hive. It's at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. It was about AI, and that's one of the topics that he was mentioning, is that there's a RAM shortage right now because everybody's trying to get extra PCs and all this RAM for their AI agent to be running things with, right? Building stuff. So Rick G says Lit is lighter per DEX. Okay, great platform, gave me a good airdrop. Awesome. So there is that. All right, let's finish off this top 200 here. Fartcoin up 5.7%. When Fartcoin's up, that is a good sign, always. And I know, I'm not too big into memes like I used to be, just specific memes. I feel like Fartcoin is the degen indicator if, the trenches are going to have any life or not. And it's up 5.7%, but it has to be up because everything is up, right? So I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into that. some stuff that might have pulled back here or did pull back. There's not much. You have QRL pulled back 4.6%, and then River, which is River is actually a really cool thing. Me and my wife use River for our DCA strategy. I actually have a link in the show notes. If you use that link, we can both make up to $100, equally, if depending on deposits and stuff like that. And then, but I use it for my DCA. It's like a wallet exchange type of situation there. But they're down 1.6%. Immutable X up about 7% here. Patapoo says, sup. Yagobi, what is up, Patapoo? Hopefully you are enjoying your Friday. And then shout out to Zentrax Pulse. He says, good morning, everyone. Shout out to all the crypto and stock enthusiasts in the chat. Keep grinding and aiming for that gold. And yes, Alio, you want to put a plug in there. Alio is an interesting project. Definitely on my radar. Cool. Thank you guys for the comment. And thank you, Patapoo. You've been a long-time supporter of the show, and I appreciate you even during these, bearish times. Although today is green, so gotta take our wins when we can get them, right? We gotta take our wins when we can get them. That is for sure. But that is the price action with crypto bubbles. Monad up 14.7%. Yeah, I'm curious how Monad's going to perform. I like their tech. I felt like it was really awesome to use their chain in terms of speed. It was just like Solana. It was instantaneous whenever I would send from a centralized exchange to my MetaMask wallet. I mean, you're talking about like that, like Solana. It was just like Solana, and it's an EVM tech stack. That's why I was really surprised by it. All right, let's get into some other headlines here. Boom. So I don't know if you guys have been noticing, but RWAs are coming on aggressively, guys. On-chain aggressively. And this is from Cointelegraph, and it says tokenized gold market cap surpasses 6 billion, up over 2 billion since the start of the year. Since the start of this year, which is crazy because, 2 months, not even 2 months, you're looking at 1.5 months right now, and it's increased 2 billion. But, something that's pretty cool. I don't know if many of you guys in the chat have messed with the Robinhood testnet, but I'm doing it, because just in case, you never know. And if you go to their Testnet Explorer, I mean, you see all of the RWAs that they have on there. They are going to be onboarding a lot of liquidity to Web3 with their chain. They are using like an Arbitrum tech stack, with their chain. But go to the Explorer. I signed up for their testnet and all that stuff. It's easy. You guys can do it. All right, yeah. So this is big. And does this increase? I do think maybe some of it had to do with just how aggressive gold was to the upside to start the year. You guys all saw it. Gold was looking really, really, really strong in terms of just purchases and market cap and just the price point. Precious metals was just on a tear. So I'm curious as well, like silver, is probably coming on chain a ton as well. But this is a sign that all of these traditional assets will be tokenized, guys. Whether it's large stocks, treasuries, it's going to change. It's going to change the world, the approach to these assets. So, as much as crypto and Web3 gets poked fun of, it's starting to be adapted, right? They're using our rails, but we kind of knew that would happen when institutions would actually come fully into our space, right? We knew that they weren't going to mess around with meme coins. They weren't going to mess around with NFTs. They were going to bring these assets that are very serious in the world and bring them on chain. I do have a question from Mesh from Abstract. says, oh, how do you access Robinhood testnet? I'm actually, if you're a member, by the way, of the channel, I'm putting out a members video this weekend. It should be really, really good. That's going to be in there, but it's not anything that's a big secret. So I would go to go to Robinhood's X account, Messmix, and follow their instructions. It's right there. It says explore, right? And then when you click on explore, it's going to take you through these step-by-step situations. You just, get your MetaMask connected, and, it'll have like some tasks for you in there. But yeah, so really, really cool stuff. And I wanted to try it out. I wanted to see what they got on there, right? And they do have builders building there, by the way. So it's going to be interesting. Courtney Johnson says, peace, bro. Hope you're doing well, brother. Hope you're doing well, man. If you ever need any help with anything, holler at me. I'll jump on a call again. That was fun, meeting you through call and stuff like that. But yeah, it is good to see you in the chat, brother. All right. What else we got here? Okay, let's take a look at this. This is something that has been like making me scratch my head. I feel like this a lot, like the second half of 2025, and now it continues on in 2026. And Cointelegraph reports and says Ethereum's weekly transaction count hits all-time high of 17.3 million, while median fees drop to record lows, indicating scaling upgrades are working per token terminal. You can see here, there's this graph here, and it shows the weekly transaction count on Ethereum, and that it's at an all-time high. And you can see right here is where we are, right? And you can see the fees. This is something that kind of plays into what Vitalik was talking about last week and the week before. Everybody freaked out, but I don't think they should. Now, if you're just building another fork Ethereum L2 that doesn't do anything special, probably don't do that. Right. I think that's probably whoever advised you to do that. It's probably not smart. Now, if you have a brand, a big brand like Sony has Sonium, Robinhood's obviously a big brand, right? Now they're probably going to specialize in things, right, with their ETH layer 2s. So that's what Vitalik was getting at, because they're focusing on this right here. What you're looking at with this chart, they're bringing down the average cost for fees and trying to increase the speed or the user experience. So they're scaling ETH layer 1 now. That's where their focus is. They've readjusted their focus to Ethereum layer 1. And, that's what he meant by that. So he was saying, if you are building an Ethereum layer 2, make it special, make it kind of stand out. And I agree with him, especially as more and more companies and institutions are going to make their own ETH layer 2s. They specialize in things. Sony specializes in gaming. Robinhood specializes in RWAs and traditional finance and trading and options and all these things. I think there's going to be some crazy option type platforms on Robinhood's chain, and I'm excited for that. All right. Let's see what we got next here. All right, Cathie, we'll probably go a little bit longer today. It's Friday. Got nothing else to do. All right. Let's see. All right. So Cathie Wood, she is the founder of Ark Invest, right? For those that don't know who Cathie Wood is. And I kind of have mixed feelings about her, because I followed a lot of her stuff in 2021 and during the COVID crash, and then the overinflation of all risk on assets. And she was just so big on all of these risk on new tech stocks, right? And I bought into them. I did. But she continued to be extremely bullish on them, and as they were crashing, and she was just like, well, they're going to turn around and all this stuff. But so maybe that's a little biased, right? Like, I need to probably get that out. But she has been like, seems to cling on to her bullish sentiment a bit. But I think if you are going to listen to her, maybe it's best to do it whenever we're in a strong bear market, right? So let's take a look at what she's saying. Cathie Wood's Ark Invest buys more Bitmine, and that is the company that is headed by Tom Lee, and they buy they're a digital asset treasury company for Ethereum, right? It says bullish shares doubling down on crypto dip, right? You get in here and it says Cathie Wood's Ark Invest purchased an additional shares in Bitmine and bullish on Thursday, further expanding its exposure to crypto-related companies. The firm bought a total of 314,000 shares of Ethereum's treasury company Bitmine across 3 of its exchanges. Traded funds worth $4.2 million based on Thursday's closing price. Bitmine's shares rose 1.4% on the day to $19.74, but remained down 36% over the past month, according to the block's BMNR. So Bitmine and MicroStrategy, I feel like these two companies they're safe. And the reason why I feel like they're safe is because if they go down, we all go down, right? And when I say we all, I mean, Cathie Wood, BlackRock's not going to be in a good spot. Now that, they are obviously, a lot of their clients are offloading the ETF and these type of things, but it just wouldn't be good for, I think, midterm or even, at the end of this year. I feel like that's close enough, right? And you got to think, for Michael Saylor to be margin called, Bitcoin has to get to some crazy price point, like $8,000. If Bitcoin's at $8,000, we're all in very, very, very big trouble. We're in very, 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 very big trouble. And so I just feel like there's too much to lose as a whole for those two companies, those two DATs, Michael Saylor, Strategy and Bitmine. Bitmine has a ton of Ethereum, and Ethereum is so intertwined with so many entities and so much of TradFi and so much of these, TradFi financial institutions and stuff. So when it comes to those kind of, treasury companies that have to do with Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two to me that are safe are Strategy and Bitmine. So in this case, I agree with her. And at least it's in kind of like these low lows for Bitcoin and Ethereum, because at the top, if she's screaming bullish, 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 I'm not listening to her again. Courtney Johnson says, do you have a link for the testnet? Yes, I'm going to put it in my members video this weekend, but I'll shoot it over to you. Hit me up on X, Courtney Johnson. I'm not sure if you have an X account, but you can find me at YagoBeverse. By the way, if you guys are listening in on X, if you could, or Abstract, or any of these platforms, if you could give me a follow at YagoBeverse. I had to restart my X account whenever we went through the transitions of how the company is now today. And so if you could give me a follow there. Also, follow the OnChain Rev account if you like our style and content and all that stuff. But yeah, give me a DM there. Actually, you know what? Let me see. I think I can pull it up here in case, because there's multiple people that are asking for it here. So let's see here. It's from the Robinhood website. So let me grab this for you guys while I'm looking for another banner here, or the next topic, because we are going to get in some Trac system stuff they are building for the agent to agent economy that we're in right now, which is crazy. It's crazy how, and by the way, after I'm done with the show, I'm probably going to go get a 6-pack, sit down, and I'm going to install OpenClaw on my PC, because I'm going to do some building, which should be very, very fun. Okay, it says, in case you missed it. All right, Courtney Johnson. So, okay. So I'm dropping this in the chat for you, Courtney Johnson, and whoever else wants it. It is the Robinhood link to their chain. Now, once you go here, you're going to click Explore Testnet. Okay, so click that, and then once you click that, you will go in, and it should kind of walk you through it. And if you have any other questions, Courtney, just shoot me a DM on X or wherever you see me, right? But all right, cool. All right, this next one right here. Right, so that Robinhood kind of threw me off there, but all right, I think we're back on track. We are back on track. Back on track. Not back on track systems yet, but back on track for the show. All right. It says BlackRock's digital assets head says institutions are buying Bitcoin dips. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of back and forth, like headlines. You're like, well, are we bullish? Are we bearish? Are we bullish? Are we bearish? There's, reasons for a lot of those headlines to come in. But, for me, when I read this kind of headline, this is like what their long-term outlook is, right? So these institutions are not buying to sell next week because they think Bitcoin is going to go up 10% next week and they're going to take their profit right away. Some of their clients might, right? But those are the individual accounts. But anyways, it says BlackRock's digital asset head says institutions are buying Bitcoin dips. Institutions, key word there. He dismissed claims that IBIT hedge funds caused the recent sell-off. I don't know if I believe that. But one thing I do believe is that institutions do buy cheap. They want it cheap. They want it cheap. And also, it's okay, for them in their mind, because they're going to be holding it for a longer term, to buy it cheaper. And then if it goes lower, they'll buy more, right? That's where I've gotten my perspective at. That's where my head is currently. Once it started to break down between the 100 moving average region and the 200 moving average, I said, that's cheap enough for me. I don't need to be super greedy. I think it was sitting around lower 70,000s. That's when me and my wife started our River DCA strategy, which quickly got, because we do the DCA plus boost strategy. So depending on if it continues down in a 30-day period, you can deploy more, right? And it got to the maximum level because our high was 92,000, I think, in the 30-day period, and we reached a 30% drop from that area, right? So fun stuff, and it shows if you do have conviction in Bitcoin, right? But again, people are not in this. Not all people are in a position to be able to DCA or add at the current moment. It's everybody has their own situation going on. So no shame in that for sure. Another comment here. Justin reposted the stream. Thank you, Justin. Welcome to the show. All right. So BlackRock saying, hey, we're going to keep buying. We're going to keep buying, which no shocker there that they are saying that. All right, let's get into some Bitcoin ecosystem stuff. Trac Network Spaces. Oh, it's live, I think, right now, by the way, guys. So, but let's get into what they're going to be talking about. Let me share this really quick. So for the audience that doesn't know what Trac Systems is, it is a project. It's a network. Trac Network is the name. You can find them on X at Trac Network. They started as a BRC-20 back in 2023 as Trac, and they started to build meta protocols on Bitcoin, and they are at this very advanced point today to where they have their own environment. But they started to build pretty aggressively when the agent meta, the open claw meta, started to kick off. Right? And you can see here, they pinned this tweet. It says, agentic DeFi with Intercom Swap. Trade Bitcoin Lightning. So they are leveraging Bitcoin Lightning's network for USDT on Solana via autonomous agents in a true peer-to-peer environment. Why is this important? In crypto, agents rely on centralized workflows and the cloud. Fast trading is offloaded to L2s and requires bridges for trades between Bitcoin and stables. Bringing this together with the two fastest and most liquid options available makes this the top choice for agents to use. Intercom Swap uses Trac Network under the hood. How this works and how to run it. See below. So you can kind of go into some of their, I guess maybe they created a thread here. Okay, so there's a thread. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it does break it down there for you guys. But one thing I will say is that, like, I said this the past couple of days. If there's going to be a blockchain that benefits the most from agent to agent autonomous like transactions, it's going to be Bitcoin's blockchain, because they don't use smart contracts. They don't have programmability on chain. You can use, some people have created off-chain indexers to run smart contracts, but then you say, well, is this on chain? What they're doing with these agent-to-agent situations? Well, it can be. That's the cool thing, is that you can put data on Bitcoin's blockchain with inscriptions, right? That can copy the transactions and what was being made, who made it, et cetera, the code of these agents, the total code of these agents, how they work. Now, I'm not a developer. I'm definitely not a Bitcoin developer, but I feel like this is going to be a huge movement for Bitcoin's ecosystem, the agent to agent, the open claw situation. Now, there's going to have to be a ton of transparency for people to use these, though. But it can make the user experience on Bitcoin Layer 1 much better. So that's what seems to be what Trac is focused on. They've always been about having scaling solutions and options for Bitcoin Layer 1. So that's what they got going on. Their space is on right now, so you can go check them out. They have an amazing community. The Block Runner guys is part of their community as well. Fitzy, awesome content creator as well. You can check them out over at Trac Network. All right. The next thing here. So Beyond is a protocol that is backed by Layer 0, right? So Beyond's a protocol that is in the Bitcoin ecosystem that is the bridge of interoperability between Bitcoin assets going out and assets coming from outside going in. And they've been working for a long time on solving these pain points. And the reason why I bring them up is because they are backed by Layer 0. Layer 0 actually retweeted them, I want to say, in the past couple days. And Layer 0 is getting an immense amount of focus from these huge institutions, right? People are getting very, very bullish on Layer 0, which makes me say, okay, what's happening with Beyond? What is Beyond doing? I need to dive in deeper. I do think they are having some sort of sale for a token or something, but that's not what I'm going to be focused on. I'm going to be focusing on where is the support with Layer 0 in terms of co-marketing, number one. Number two, what solutions, pain point solutions, is Layer 0 going to provide for Bitcoin Layer 1? Because that's what their primary focus is for Bitcoin Layer 1. You can see it in their description of their X accounts. As Beyond is the Bitcoin bridge, L1 and L2s like Layer 0, but for Bitcoin, something that's been needed a ton, right? So that is, I think the last thing. Oh, no, okay. So another part of the Bitcoin ecosystem, Citrea mainnet campaign week 2 is done. So Citrea is another scaling solution that utilizes Bitcoin Layer 1. They actually, they are the main reason the I forgot what the BIP was called, but the increased the the op return data storage limits for they didn't come out and say this is for Citrea, but there's a pretty much a, an understanding, I would say, that, they needed that to increase, to be able to add data to scale what they, or create what they wanted to do. And what they do is roll up type stuff, right? So they're done with their week 2. Now, I haven't seen a ton of activity outside of some of their posts and some other posts. But if you dig deeper, you can kind of see what's been happening here. It says week 2 updates. The Bridger, it says the Citrea mainnet campaign now features 5 active categories: the Bridger, liquidity provider, trader, lender, yield strategist, and it goes in a little bit of detail, right? Swaps and all this stuff. So this is to earn points, right, for Citrea. Now, I do know that they are backed by some investment and stuff like that. So could be worth taking a look at, taking a little gander, right? Why not? But you can see they have some DEXs as well on here. The Bitcoin ecosystem has calmed down quite a bit, but there's still people investing and building there. So definitely something to keep your eye on. And the last thing, shout out to Scott and the founder of Radfi. I think they're going to have a space as well. They have a trading competition. They do a kind of launch pad for Bitcoin runes on Bitcoin Layer 1 as well. So you can check them out. Radfi at Radfi_BTC. All right, now let's check out some of the trenches here. There's a little bit happening over in in the trenches, the Solana trenches, right? Not a ton, but you are seeing a little bit, right? You are seeing a little bit. In terms of new tokens that I'm seeing stick out here, there was one. No, not that one. So a lot of these are like 250,000. You got to be very, very careful over in Solana, by the way, with pump fund and all these things. That a lot of these won't survive longer than a day. Maybe they last for 2-3 days. But if they do build up enough momentum, then they can definitely show some strength, like you saw with White Whale. White Whale got to $100 million market cap, right? Towards the end of last year when everything was dead. So now one token that seems to be kind of trying to revive itself is there's this token called Big Trout. So I said, how many days is it alive for? So this is one of those situations. It seems like there could be this resurgence and like some sustainability maybe, but do your own research on this one. This is one that I noticed, right? It's sitting at $3 million. There are almost 10,000 holders. It's called Big Trout. It is from Pump Fund. I would just do my research, look at their community. I heard about this from one of our community members. And so, it reminds me a little bit of kind of how White Whale started, because White Whale was one of these tokens that, he has an X account. He's known to do TA or like great research on meme coins and all this stuff. He lost a ton of money trading on Hyperliquid in 2025. And then someone launched this White Whale token and it went from 5 million to like 800,000 back and forth. And eventually it just took off and it went to like 10 million, 40 million, and it eventually worked its way up to 100 million. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with this. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that this looks like, it's starting to kind of revive itself. And again, extremely careful. I would research it. You can go to their X account, see if their community is solid. You can see the main guy. He's supposedly the TA guy as well. So I'm not too sure exactly, but that is one of the things that's kind of catching momentum here. Stan says TGIF. Thanks, dude. Yes, TGIF. Go enjoy yourselves. Seriously, on this Friday, right? The markets will wait for you. They're not running away. I'll tell you that. They are not running away to the upside, away from you guys. All right. I think, let me see. Let me check on Bitcoin one more time. So ETH is still at 2,053. Bitcoin's at 68.7. So 68.7 here. Let me remove these. So these were the resistant areas right here. So yeah, you can see this daily still kind of creeping up here. We see this clasp and this crossover, and we go into buy pressure. That's where it gets interesting, right? But going to the shorter time frame here, see what we got before we end the show. All right. Irita, GM, Irita TV, shout out. Poet Babe from Abstract says, what are your thoughts on Death Strategy token? Is that, I'm assuming that is a Abstract ecosystem token. Let me know what chain that's on. I'm going to look it up, but let me know what chain that's on. But yeah, I mean, so the hour right here for Bitcoin, are we going to have a strong red candle here for this hour? We got 47 minutes left. It's just getting started. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 hour candles in a row. Look at that. Wick down. I hate that. It's like there's no strength, sustainable strength. I mean, you're going to get wicks a lot of time for sure. But, I just hate to see that. And then all of a sudden you see red. And then nothing's going to be up only, guys. Nothing is going to be down only, right? So, 4 hours of green candles. Hey, no shocker, we got a red candle here. But let's take a look at Death Strategy on ETH. Let's see. Is it a NFT? 365 on Ethereum. That's interesting. That is interesting. So it's launched 2 days ago. Very, very new. There are 214 holders. So this is pretty degen so far, Poet Babe. I didn't realize you're so degen over there. All right. What does their Twitter look like? Appreciate you, Courtney Johnson. Appreciate the support. Appreciate all you guys. Arita as well. Courtney Johnson says, thanks, fam, with the heart hands. Thank you. Appreciate all the support and, just giving me your attention. That's the biggest thing. I feel like I took your attention for granted before, right? And that's not something I'm never going to do ever again. So hopefully my content will be, have value, give value to you guys, right? It's not, entertainment's cool and all that stuff, but like really let's learn together, right? And that's the whole point of the AI segment on Wednesdays. That's the whole point of me getting into some of these epiphanies that I've figured out with the moving average indicator, right? Or with the Robinhood situation and testnet, right? So hopefully we learn together, we can win together. That's what it matters, because you guys are giving me your attention, and I'm very, very thankful for that. All right, let's take a look here. So Death Strategy sitting at the home of Web3. Cyberkongs? Did they launch this? Cyberkongs? I know the Cyberkongs. They actually came to Bitcoin Ordinals. You guys remember them. Let's see. Oh, they did. Interesting. This is interesting. Cyberkongs is a ETH NFT collection that's pretty legit. I mean, they did. They started a Bitcoin rune at one point. I don't know if you guys remember in the chat, but they started a Bitcoin rune for sure. So that's interesting. I mean, they probably have some. I wonder also if it is okay. I'll check the website. She wants me to check the website, so I will check the website. Better not be no virus website though. All right. New Death Star token available. Connect your wallet. Not going to do that just yet. New target acquired. Mutant ape. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I see what they're doing. I like this so far. Okay. So the way that this is one of those strategy tokens, guys, punk strategy. You saw it kind of happen with the Bitcoin ecosystem a little bit with Radfi and Node Monkey strategy. But what the Cyberkongs are doing is they are targeting other collections, right? So they charge a 10% tax per transaction, right? They keep that tax in a wallet, and they have a target that they go after. So their new target, it says new target acquired, Mutant Ape Yacht Club. So they're looking to get a mutant, but the current target is a Doodles. So either they already acquired this or they're adjusting targets. But like you can see, they're going for like this treasury, NFT treasury situation. Amigos here, you got mutants, you got Azuki, Pudgy, and then Doodles. What is this one? I forgot what that one is. Oh, I guess that's Death Star. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. I like it. I'm gonna look into that because, like I said, I'm familiar with the Cyberkongs, and they did make a strong effort over in Ordinals. Ordinals just lost a lot of steam during that time, but I think Ordinals are going to come back pretty strong. By the way. All right. I think that might be it. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on this Friday the 13th. And remember to do one thing this weekend that brings you joy outside of crypto, or, I suggest it. Obviously I'm not telling you guys what to do. You're all adults. But, it does get your mind away from it. It gets your mind away from the price action, just constantly, worried about, is Bitcoin up? Is Bitcoin down? Those type of things. I'm actually playing golf tomorrow. I've been in the golf a lot lately, even though it's very, very hard, with a couples friend. So we're doing kind of a Valentine's date. Well, thanks to the wives, they're letting us play. They're just going to be in the carts. So that should be pretty fun. But updates for next week will just be the Wednesday segment, AI segment with the guys at Big Noodle. This Sunday, I'm dropping the members only video. So if you are interested in joining my membership, it's on YouTube. It is $10 a month, but I put out videos every week, and I'm going to put some extra value in those. I'm going to walk you guys through some things. And then also I'm doing an intro to Web3 and crypto, just, in case you have some friend or something that's just interested in learning about the basics, what Bitcoin is, why it was created. I'm not charging for that at all or nothing like that. I just want to have a safe place for people that are trying to get, introduced to what it is and not be so scared and have anxiety. So you can send them to my channel. That will probably be available, I would say, the next week. And some big movements happening, I would say, that has to do with building in the brand as well. So stay tuned to that, guys. I will definitely, let you guys in on that information as it gets closer, but it's going to be exciting stuff when we get closer to that. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys for checking me out on Abstract. Zora, I don't know if it's broken or what, but I got to go look at that. Zora's broken every other day. Can we get that fixed, Zora? And then to TikTok as well. Appreciate you guys. Without you guys, I could not do this show. I'm very, very appreciative of y'all. But also without my partners, I couldn't do it as well. If you are interested in that banner at the bottom there, you can go to pyro.buzz and you can bid on that placement. And then also, if you wouldn't mind heading over to, when you get a chance, if you're interested in staking, Bitcoin staking, or staking the Merlin token, you go to merlinchain.io, and they have 3 staking options. You can stake Bitcoin to earn more Bitcoin. You get paid out in Bitcoin. They try to shoot between 8 and 21%. Sometimes they can't hit that, but they try to do that. The very first stake bought was 17%, and it is a 3-month lockup period. And then there's 2 options with the Merlin Chain token. There's the flexible, which is a day-to-day. You can claim your rewards every single day for the Merlin Chain token if you stake it. 15% APR. If you want to withdraw, there's a 7-day cooldown period. That's just kind of a part of their standard protocol. And then the last option is the bonded option, is the 6-month lockup period. You earn 45% APR. And this team's crushing it. They got listed on Kraken, Spot, and Perps, as well as Coinbase Perps. So I'm excited to see what they got to offer in 2026. And if you also have another moment, you can go to OnChain Revolution. The website is back up. You go to onchainrevolution.io. I post a daily kind of market recap type of, or market pulse, I would say, blog articles here in the morning to kind of get your day going. You can head there if you're interested in a NordVPN. You can get a big hefty discount if you use my link here. And then also I have a Ledger link there. I'm going to be updating the website as well. But a lot of things has happened the past couple of weeks. So, I appreciate you guys giving me grace to kind of take a little time to get things going. The Spotify community, we got those videos back up as well. But that is all I got on this Friday for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy this weekend. And until Monday, peace.